Bhagavad Gita, and there's so much knowledge that's repeated in many different ways. But ultimately, the conclusion, Krishna says, just think of me, give your mind to me, worship me. Then I will protect you, have no fear, just surrender unto me. So whatever Krishna's given us, we have to take those abilities, those traits, those qualities, that way of life, and engage it in Krishna's service somehow. And whatever's favorable, we accept and we employ in Krishna's service. And whatever's unfavorable, we have to reject. We have to reject. So Arjuna is in this situation. He doesn't know what to accept and what to reject, but he's just playing this part for our behalf so we can learn, so Krishna can instruct him. So we'll keep reading. If anybody has any comments or questions or anything, we can talk at any time. 35. The great generals will think that you have left the battlefield and fear open, unless they will consider you a coward. But Krishna continued to give his wording to Arjuna. Do not think that great generals like Duryodhana, Karna, and other contemporaries will think that you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brother's grandfather. They will think that you have left out of fear of your life, thus their high estimation of your personality will go to hell. Yes, I mentioned this point. 36. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? Lord Krishna was astonished in the beginning at Arjuna's call for a plea for compassion. And he described his compassion as befitting the non-Aryans. Now, in so many words, he proved his statements against Arjuna's so-called compassion. This is a very interesting thing about the Bhagavad Gita. I like this sentence that Prabhupada said, now in so many words, he's proved his statements against Arjuna's so-called compassion. So I was thinking about this by everybody sitting here has come from different backgrounds and somehow approached Krishna consciousness, approached Krishna's devotees, and we all have so many excuses why not to do it. So many excuses why I don't have to chant Hare Krishna, why I don't have to be a devotee, why I don't have to surrender to Krishna. Your excuses are different than yours and yours. We all have different. But, like I said, Prabhupada said, now in so many words, he has proved his statements against Arjuna's so-called compassion. So, Arjuna's so-called compassion, this was his so-called reasons why he didn't have to do his duty, why he didn't have to surrender to this higher cause. So we have our so-called reasons also, but if we are open to hearing what the devotees have to say, then the devotees can slash through our doubts and time again convince us that, oh yeah, this is actually the only thing that's worth doing is serving Lord Krishna. So this is why we gather in the temple every day to hear from the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, so we could hear the words directly coming from Lord Krishna, from Lord Krishna's devotees, and especially Srila Prabhupada. Because by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, he's disseminated this knowledge, this transcendental knowledge, to make it so clear, and it sharpens our consciousness, sharpens our intelligence, and makes it clear that I am a spiritual being, that this material world is just mundane, and when I try to connect with the material world, there's no pleasure, there's no satisfaction, it's only frustration only, because whatever you try to grasp, it is stripped away by time. You have the perfect situation, the situation the situation you always dreamed of, and it will be taken away by time. So whatever we do in the world, it always has a beginning and an end. But devotional service does not have a beginning and an end. It is eternal. And this is why in text 40, what is it? 41. It says, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So when one realizes that Krishna is there, I'm Krishna's servant, like it or not. And when I try to enjoy Krishna's energies indirectly, it leads to frustration. And when I try to serve Krishna directly, it leads to deeper growth, deeper realization, deeper humility. All good qualities develop by that rendering of devotional service to Lord Krishna, because Krishna is all good. Whatever Krishna does is all good for everybody. So by coming in contact with Krishna, it's all good. So simply by chanting his holy names, by hearing his pastimes, by serving his devotees, or rendering some feeble service to Krishna, it's always purifying. Even though sometimes we may get challenged by our mind, challenged by our desires, challenged by so many trying situations. These challenging situations are only there because we maintain some kind of, how do you say, independent mentality, selfish desires. Yeah, I'll serve Krishna, but really I want something in return. So because we have some selfish motive, there's some friction there, which creates some turbulence. So then that turbulence we consider to be, oh, that was purifying. Because so many things come up in the mind. Say we're chanting japa and we're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm almost done. I want to go do this. I want to do that. Or our mind's wandering and thinking about so many other things. Friction, because we're not just doing it 100%, 10% for Krishna's pleasure. So when one has sufficiently realized this knowledge, then Ekeha Kuru Nandana, his knowledge is one-pointed, Ekeha, one-pointed. And one whose knowledge has not come to that point, then Bahu Shakha Hyanantascha. His knowledge is many, many, many branched. Many branched. I'm just thinking about this many branched knowledge in Kali Yuga. It's much, 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 much worse in Kali Yuga. Everything is magnified because what Krishna is speaking is true for all times, all places, all circumstances. It's absolute knowledge. And imagine 500 years ago, somebody whose knowledge was Bahu Shakha Yanantascha, was many branched. How many branched could it be compared to nowadays, where if I don't want to take the self-realization to understand what Krishna is saying, I can just go on Google and learn about this guru and this philosophy and that religion and this and that, and endless knowledge right at your fingertips. So dangerous, Kali Yuga, because we go on Google and we accept Google as an authority. Google Dave. So we have to come to the point of accepting Krishna and Krishna's bona fide representatives as authorities in our life. And by dint of their realization of Krishna consciousness, of this transcendental knowledge, in cooperation with knowledge of the scriptures, we should inquire from them who have that wealth. And if we truly inquire in a humble, submissive way and hear with an aptitude for trying to understand what is being conveyed, then we can be convinced that, yes, service to Krishna is the best thing that I could do with my life. And if I can't do it, then even if this person is years younger than me and looks much more degraded and much more filthy than me, but he's able to fully engage in Krishna's service, then actually that person I should worship because they're able to give themselves more to Krishna than me. This is the natural humility that develops as a devotee, that I see other persons and I might not agree with the way they do things, the way they speak, the way they carry themselves, but I see that they are wholeheartedly trying to give themselves to Krishna, to Guru, and that is worthy of my worship, my respect. And by this admiration amongst devotees, Krishna becomes very pleased. Not that we think I'm a Brahmin devotee from India, or I'm a Russian devotee, and that's a Chinese devotee, and that's a degraded American devotee. This is bodily consciousness, seeing the externals. But the internal, that love and devotion for Krishna, this is what is desirable. So this is what has to be cultivated. And to get there, one has to understand the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation. And imagine we're going to school, like grade school. We're getting taught, say, mathematics. First you get taught, I don't know the order, but algebra, geometry, trigonometry, so on and so forth. So imagine that's like a constant conversation, these teachers talking to you. First they have to start with the base level, then the next, and building up and up and up. You have to understand the basics. So Krishna's having this conversation with Arjuna in this second chapter, which is called The Contents of the Gita Summarized. Krishna's giving the basics, very, very basics. So we have to understand the basics before we can go on to more esoteric points of understanding. And the basic knowledge, as we were talking on Friday, almost 11 out of like the 12 first instructions Krishna gives is relating to knowledge that you are not your body. You are an eternal soul. You live forever. You can't die. You can't be cut. You're amazing. Some people realize that, some people hear that, and some people, after hearing, they still can't understand it at all. That's how transcendental the soul is. You can't die. You're eternal. So what's the point of lamentation? So when one takes this knowledge and takes it to a higher point of vision, we see that we have nothing to do with the material body, and the whole material situation that we've been given is merely just temporary. So one person may be conditioned to living a very pious, wealthy life, and one person may be conditioned, they have mental problems and drug addiction. It doesn't matter. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. So we all have our own position, and simply by engaging in devotional service, all the impurities will be flushed out. And by chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, this is the means to approach Krishna in this Kali Yuga, which is very easily accessible. Anybody can do it. We just simply have to do it. Easier said than done sometimes, huh? Sometimes it seems, okay, easy. All I have to do is chant this, but there's a quote from Srila Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He said, trying my best to quote it perfectly, but he says, one should simply try to purchase a ticket to go back to the spiritual world. The only qualification is one's intense desire for it. But this intense desire is very rarely obtained. It cannot be obtained from many, 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 many lifetimes of pious activities. All of our material relationships are sure to come to an end. But once we establish that eternal relationship with Krishna, it does not end. So he says that we should try to establish this relationship with Krishna, because that relationship never ends. It always builds, it always goes deeper, and Krishna will never let us down. We all crave relationships. Somebody we can give ourselves to, somebody who we love and we actually trust, somebody who appreciates me for being me. I want to be appreciated, that everybody says, yeah, I trust you. I know that you know best. I trust you'll figure it out. Whatever you do is perfect. We love you. But then when other people are there, I don't want to treat them that way. This is the material world. I want everybody to praise me and love me and trust me, but I don't trust or love anybody. So we all want that, and Krishna is there with that relationship waiting for us. He will never let us down. We can always love him, always trust him, always depend upon him. And once we establish that relationship, it only gets deeper and deeper. Because what did Krishna say in text 40? In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So whatever advancement we make towards Krishna, then Krishna always remembers. And sometimes this verse is referred to as a spiritual bank balance. Because you go to a bank and you deposit some credits and they keep your money and then they give you interest. So this is like you deposit your devotion to Krishna and Krishna holds on to that deposit for you and he doesn't forget it. But just like a bank gives interest, Krishna also gives interest. And I was hearing my Guru Maharaj, he was speaking about this and he said he was always thinking, what's the interest? What does Krishna give? What's the extra incentive? And he was talking about Krishna. There's a shloka somewhere, I forget where, but Krishna was remembering Draupadi. When Draupadi was derobed in this assembly of all these kshatriyas, and she was fighting to cover herself, and she eventually gave up, and she said, "Hey, Govinda," and just fully depended upon Krishna. He was saying that Krishna, when he says that he experiences so much ecstasy and happiness every single time when he thinks of Draupadi doing that. So when we make our acts of sacrifice, Krishna becomes very pleased. And sometimes the acts of sacrifice may be, "Today I chanted 16 rounds, very attentive, and today was a very good day. I used all my time in Krishna's service." That's pleasing to Krishna. Sometimes we may make a blunder of ourselves and make the worst mistakes and have the worst day or worst week ever. Total Maya, total not Krishna conscious. But then we still decide, okay, Krishna, I'm completely fallen, but I'm still going to try to do some service. This is also very pleasing to Krishna. As long as we have this resolute determination that I will serve Krishna no matter what, then Krishna will protect us. He says, "Sarva dharman pratyaja amami kam sharanam braja ham tvam sarva papibhyo mokshayasami masucha." To surrender unto me, do not fear. So Prabhupada says, chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is just like a child calling out to its mother, crying for help. So this is what we're trying to cultivate. It's just fully depending upon Krishna. I had a good day. Jai, thank you, Krishna. Thank you, Guru. All glories to Guru and Krishna that I'm able to do this. I had a bad day. Okay, I'm gonna serve. I'm gonna serve anyway. I'm gonna do whatever I can, and just keep going. Keep doing more. Keep doing more. Keep doing more. In this way, purification comes, clarity of consciousness. But if we think that devotional service leads to a happy life free of problems, this is an illusion. Srila Prabhupada is a very pure devotee, and he faced so many difficulties. He was walking around in India, in Delhi, in the summertime, selling his magazines. He had a heat stroke, 68 years old, over 65 years old, in the heat, selling magazines. Also, in that same time, he got gored by a bull. Left on this ship to go from India to America. He didn't know anybody here, no money, no resources. Had a heart attack along the way, 2 heart attacks. I could go on with a longer list, but he faced so many difficulties, but that never stopped him. So the point of Krishna consciousness, it's not that we view it as, okay, happy life, no problems, therefore I want to do it. No, it's because serving Krishna provides a bliss, a satisfaction that is much more subtle, much more valuable, much more cherishable than anything you'll ever find on the material plane. So we can see devotees who fully surrender to Krishna and see what they're going through, the challenges that they've pushed through and overcome, and ask them why they do that, or just even try to ponder why somebody would chant Hare Krishna for 50 years, 60 years, and give up the best years of their life, their youthful years. They're obviously getting something out of it. And we can see, not always, but a lot of times, people get to being an old age and they look back on their past and they say, oh, if only I would have done like this, I would have been fulfilled. You know, if I could go back in time, I would change this, I would change that. But we see devotees who are older, and they're totally blissful, or maybe they lament that I wish I could have done more service, because the service was so much nectar that I should have done more of that. Never like, oh, I wish I didn't take up this Hare Krishna thing. That was a waste of time. Oh, more service, more service. Prabhupada, he said that in the material world, you work hard your whole life, and in the end, you retire and you do less work. In a spiritual and Krishna consciousness, you work hard throughout your life, and then in your older years, you work harder. You want to do more service for Krishna because it's more nectar, more blissful. So we have to have the proper conception of what spiritual life is and what Krishna consciousness is. And this is sambandha. Sambandha is establishing a relationship with God, understanding the relationship, the whole point of life, of what this is all about, what life is about, what Krishna consciousness is about, how that relationship is supposed to be in truth, and how everything relates to that sambandha. But then beyond sambandha, we have to have the question of how to actually attain that. Abhideya, the practices to actually follow to cultivate that relationship, to attain that goal. And then we need to have prayojana, knowledge of what the perfection of that goal, of achieving that goal actually looks like. And this is why we have our wonderful Vaishnavacharyas, who we were talking about earlier, who a lot of them actually, their Siddha Sarup in the spiritual world is actually that of Mandris and Gopis and Krishna's associates. So we can hear about their life and how they lived and carried themselves to give us a clear-cut example of what we should be doing. Because we could say on our own, oh, chanting Hare Krishna is too difficult. 16 rounds, that's just too much. I can't do it. Look at Raghunath Das Goswami. He chants 1 lakh names a day, 100,000 names a day. And he'd offer his obeisances to the Vaishnavas 2,000 times. He'd offer his obeisances to Radha Krishna 1,000 times a day. And we think chanting 16 rounds is difficult. Simply, we have to take shelter of our acharyas and never bring them down to a lower level. We see that they're up there and I can't attain that. That is possible. Not that, oh, they did that and that's not possible, so therefore I'll do whatever I want to do. This is not good. Okay, it's time. Maybe if anybody has any quick comment or question, we can entertain that. Okay, Bhakti Ada. If it's a short question, you could just say it.
Why is chanting and hearing Shastra, like pastimes and stuff, why is that a service?
Say you meet somebody on the street, they're friendly, and they see you and they say, oh, you look like a very nice person. I like your hat. Where did you get that hat? And that hat's like special to you. And then you tell them this whole story about how your mother gave you the hat or something. This is a mundane example. They ask something about you, they're expressing interest into you and your life. Naturally, you feel like, oh, this person cares about me. I like them. So when we're hearing about the pastimes of Krishna, like we're connecting to Krishna. Krishna is the source of all these scriptures, so therefore he's providing all this knowledge, he's giving it, and by us tuning into it, Krishna becomes very pleased because we're hearing about Krishna. So then we're able to connect to Krishna in a much deeper way. So we may hear the Leelas, the pastimes of Krishna, and we're like, okay, that was cool. Krishna killed this donkey, but what does that mean for my life? Krishna killed this other demon and he did this, but how does that affect me? There's no philosophy there. It's because we're viewing it from a concept of me, 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 me. What does it have to do with me? But when we simply just turn to Krishna and hear how wonderful Krishna is, how sweet Krishna is, how cool Krishna is, Krishna becomes very pleased by this. It's a very great service, actually, because you can take your time and engage it anywhere else. Listen to music and watch sports and watch the news and do this and do that. But all these things are temporary and transient, but Krishna's eternal. And he's a person. So by us inquiring and wanting to know more about Krishna, how he acts, how he really is, because we can read a quick pastime, for instance, the pastime of Mother Yashoda binding Krishna with ropes. When you read in the Krishna book, it's just like 2 pages long. You could read it in like 6 minutes. But our acharyas have written like books upon that pastime. We spend a whole month, Kartik, celebrating Krishna in this pastime. So my point is, you can look at a pastime and it seems like it's like this little small thing, but if you actually enter into it, like ask questions, really try to understand and meditate what's going on and trying to see the relationships that's enveloping within it with Krishna and his devotees, then it opens up to this giant thing, and that can go on eternally. And that's what we're actually here for, is to enter into Krishna's Leela in that way. So that will bring the soul the utmost satisfaction. So it's not just service of like, okay, I surrender and I'll do this thing that is like I'm forced to do and I don't want to do. It's actually what we're looking for is like the most pleasurable thing. But because we have jaundice, jaundice means you taste something sweet and it tastes bitter. It's a real disease people get. The way to cure it is you keep eating something sweet. And naturally the sweet thing actually starts to taste how it normally is sweet. So because we're conditioned by the material world and our false ego, we're like, oh, why do I always have to hear about Krishna? Where's my Radharani? Where's my, glorious killing demons? Where's my me, 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 me? But when we hear about Krishna, it's pleasing to Krishna. So that's why it's service. It's pleasing to Krishna. Okay, Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai Ki Jai. Stop.